Hi everyone, how are you doing? My name is Alma, this is the last day of FOSS4G. I hope you had fun last night at the party and we'll get through this last day of conferences. So, my name is Alma Rangel, here is Selene, who will be presenting one project with me and is trying to fight the computer right now. But basically, one of the things we do, one of the many things we do, is we help collective leverage open source tools for crowd mapping. And I want to tell you a bit about Codeando Mexico. Codeando is an NGO that was born 11 years ago in Mexico. We started in 2013. And we started with a very simple premise, which was, since we get to contribute to the public space, sometimes with traditional volunteering opportunities, such as planting trees or voting, why can't we contribute to the public space with our skills, which are technical skills? So, technical skills, particularly in a country like Mexico, I don't know in your countries, are very hard to come by in the public space. Public institutions, collectives like social movements, NGOs, they don't generally have the technical resources, they don't have the money, and they don't have the people to actually be able to integrate tech into their processes effectively, at least not the small ones. And they're basically whoever's fighting at the front of the main public programs our city has. So we had the idea that we can actually contribute technical skills and expertise to public problems. And so we are a community-based organization. There's a small core team that works within the organization, but we also have a community of volunteers, of over 200 volunteers who have different skills. Like they code, they do data analysis, they do machine learning, they do a wide range of things, and they contribute to different projects. So we do work with a lot of tech and data projects and a lot of subjects because we work as technical partners to whoever really understands the problem, which is a separate thing. So what we realized is also there are a lot of developers that really want to contribute their time. Sometimes they're exhausted with their work, or they don't feel valued, but they don't understand social problems. So they end up building things that no one uses, or they just die. They're fun for a while, but they don't actually solve anything. So this means that we have a certain set of values within our organization. One of those values is that all of our projects are collaborative. There's not a single project that's just Codeando Mexico. We always have experts on the other side who understand the problem from the ground and from their perspective. And second, all of our projects are open. The data, the processes, the methodology, the code, they always remain open. So next. So the first one is, does the project have a clear objective and scope? I know this one's easy, but we love this analogy of a wicked problem. Like, if we cannot phrase a problem, we cannot solve it. And whatever resources we put into a problem, which are limited because our community is also a volunteer community, will not prosper. The second is, do the scope and objective actually require technology? And surprisingly, most of my work is saying they don't. Like 80% of the projects that come to us don't really need technology. Like they need other sorts of on-the-ground or easy to implement solutions, but it's not actually a tech problem, it's a human problem. This is, I think, also a problem from within the funders. Like funders like to give money to things that sound trendy, but that don't always work. So sometimes NGOs or public institutions have money because they said they were going to build a website or whatever, but that's not actually what they need. The next one is, are there open source tools and methodologies that we can take advantage of? Like, we should not build from scratch. Most of these organizations need tech and data for a very limited scope, and they cannot sustain a tool, like even if we built it. And the fourth one is, can the collective itself, our volunteers, or our core team actually sustain this project over time? Because sometimes people come with very critical projects. For example, we did a project on giving families information about how to find a disappeared person in Mexico. So these are very critical projects. And if we're not able to sustain them, someone who's actually using them is going to miss them. So we need to think about that from the start and from the design. That is called Urbe León. They work in Mexico with micromobility and road accidents. And they wanted to make a citizen exercise to assess pedestrian and cycling infrastructure in one neighborhood in León. Like, they basically kind of understood the problem in the city. They wanted to do an intervention, and the municipality was not allowing them to do the intervention because basically there was no data. So next one. I don't know if the streets in your country look like that, but the streets in my country look like that all the time. It's impossible to walk. So in Mexico, as a result of road accidents, actually around 44 people die every day, 384 suffer serious injuries, and 110 end up with some type of permanent disability. So this is a high number. And then only 8% of the streets in this city are actually built to prioritize pedestrians and cyclists. So the collective had in mind what they wanted to map. We sat down, they are experts in mobility, they are experts in micromobility, and they defined a set of things they wanted to map. And together with the people within the neighborhood, so we chose Andrade because it's very centric, it has a high flow of cars and traffic, and it's also particularly a neighborhood that has a high percentage of elder people. So it's a particularly vulnerable population. They mapped the streets, the condition of the sidewalks, the condition of cycling routes, bus stops, green areas, and basically they organized the neighborhood. 15 people kind of mapped everything in a day, and they presented this to the municipality. Next. So with this project, the municipality was able to actually approve tactic urban workshops, and the collective was able to do some interventions that bettered the neighborhood. More importantly, when we work with collectives, we make a real effort for them to understand the use and value of technology and how can they apply it themselves. So this was very good, and the neighborhood still has the signs that the collective put up, etc. The neighbors actually organized and then made a petition to the municipality for more police officers because there were also some security problems. But the collective has since actually used Kobo, which was a tool we decided to use, to do different things. So now they're using it because in León, public transportation is getting a spike in price. And in Mexico, the law requires them to kind of be able to maintain certain expectations on the public transportation, like security, the amount of times a bus passes, etc., in order to be able to spike the price. So right now the collective is actually leveraging that data. They're collecting data on how the companies are actually not being able to provide the minimum conditions, so they cannot spike the price of the transportation until they do. The second one is Mapatón, which is a story I like a lot, because, I'm checking time. Because it was done in Jalapa in 2016, and it's a project that is still alive. It's a project that was built by 4 people. Like 4 people were hanging around their city, they were getting together to understand their problems. And one of the things they realized is cities in Mexico don't have access to the public transportation data. When I mean they don't have access, is the municipality. No one in the city has actually like a map of how many bus routes there are, where do they go, where do they start, how much they charge, who are the companies doing this, and this has to do with how the legislation is built in Mexico. So public transportation is a state matter, but the states don't operate public transportation, cities do. And cities don't have access to the data, so they're not able to plan ahead and do urban planning. So they started asking government for data, they started asking other organizations, and they realized no one had this map. So basically, they rallied a bunch of people. They found a project that's actually not been updated since 2015, that's called Transit One. They took it, they revamped it, and they created a tool that's called MapMap. It's basically an app that lets you map any route without any use of data. And they basically convinced 40 people in the city to map the entire route system in just one weekend. So this city actually has 400,000 people. So basically 4 people convinced 40 people to make a map that would help 400,000. And so this project actually was so good that we kind of packaged the methodology and we packaged the technology and we opened it up. It has since been replicated in 5 countries and over 20 cities. Like sometimes we just check the server and someone's using it in Cuba or in Peru, and we don't know exactly what they're doing with it. But the ones we manage, we upload. So we actually opened up this, this project, and we found, because that happens when you open up projects, we found like-minded people. And right now, we are in a collaboration, can you do next? In a collaboration, next, with Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team and Trophy Association. And over the past years, since this was built, we basically have the GTFS right now for 5 cities in Michoacán, 2 cities in Veracruz. And we're currently mapping 3 in Oaxaca and the state of Mexico, which is actually one of the biggest challenges in transportation in Mexico. Like even like the 2nd largest city in the country, which is connected to Mexico City, does not have that map because reasons. So yeah, we're working on it, and like we have the ambition to basically finish the entire map, at least of the main cities in Mexico. We do all this with also open source. Like we started using Transit One and we built MapMap, but we also use OSM Tracker. And then according to whatever the city needs, because sometimes they also need information about how many people get on the bus, get off the bus, like they need that data. We also use Code Toolbox, and we use OpenStreetMap. So we basically track the routes, put them in OpenStreetMap, and then make the GTFS. So we're also contributing to the map, because in order to put the routes on the map, we need to make the map from the city better. And we work with students, we work with volunteers to basically map the routes in each city we go to. And the last project is with Geochicas. Do you want to present Geochicas? Because since she's here, she should talk about this.
Because I'm here. If not, I wouldn't be talking or saying anything about this. But okay, so first of all, what we've been doing is that for the past, maybe I think it's been 5 years, not consecutive years because of pandemic and so on, we've been mapping all the events across the world that are being, like for like celebrations or rallies or yeah, like how do you say it, como marchas, like marches as well, for International Women's Day. And this has been a great effort into putting out a call for action for people who are not part of our community. So basically the people who are mapping this is not only Geochicas, but it's everyone that it's also organizing this kind of events, right? So we've been the ones that you can see in the maps are 2024, 23, 20, and 2019. The first that we did on 2019 and 20 and 2023, that was without the collaboration of Codeando Mexico, but this year's what we decided to do is that, as Alma was saying, we started implementing the use of Kobo as the survey that we put out for people to actually map their activities. And that's pretty much the collaboration we've had, and I'm gonna pass it on to Alma as well so she can give you all the technical details on that side. If you have any questions also about this project, we're having a Geochicas panel around 2:30, I think, and we're gonna go more in depth about this project.
Yeah, so basically when you crowd map, you have the challenge to actually systematize data. So everyone should map around like the same things, in the same tools, etc. So Geochicas was initially only using UMap and everyone could map. So after 3 maps, they needed to they wanted to concentrate everything in a single map. So you could see all the mobilizations in one single place. And we realized we could not do that because the data was not systematized. Each map has its own way of mapping, like each actual point has different ways of thinking, etc. So, and people also map in 4 different languages. So we also needed kind of to figure that one out. So this year we helped them using Kobo to systematize the process and have a consistent database for the first time. And we also built a script to import it to UMAP. And the idea is from here on, we're going to basically systematize all the way back. And then for the next years, we can actually use what we built this year just to keep adding to the map. So yeah, some lessons learned just in general. We built with, not for. Like, I think one of the things we as technical teams sometimes downplay a lot is the actual partners can sometimes, like if we take an effort and we explain it, they can actually really understand some basics of the technicals just in order to be able to talk to the technical team. Because the thing is, like, you can be great developers, but if you have to leave, you don't have enough time. Whenever they have to change a development team, they struggle so much. So they should understand the basics of their project, and also they should have ownership of their project. One of the first things we do is kind of build their own GitLab account. They have the credentials, like they have everything, because it's very important for us, for them to understand that they are the owners of the project. The second is we avoid developing from scratch, like as much as we can. It's very rarely that we develop new technology. We mostly use and contribute to open source tools. For crowd mapping, it's more difficult, but for example, for different projects, when we use other open source tools, we also contribute in money, in kind, like whatever we make, we try to give a percentage back. We feed the tech to the project and not the project to the tech. It's very, very common that someone comes around and says like, I want this tech, and we ask why, and they don't know, they don't exactly know, like the tech sounded good. And we open up our processes to enrich them and bring new collaborations. Like for us, openness has really, like, it has really grown the way we think about the projects and the way we build the projects. So we think about them from that way from the start. And last but not least, small organizations and collectives can really leverage open source tools, particularly for systematization, collection, and visualization. I think most of us sometimes work with projects that have a really large scale in terms of data, but small data is really important to whoever builds it and works with it. It's not always necessarily super useful for a municipality because it's not standardized with other neighborhoods, but it's important to them. And it's really, like, we make it very clear that it's not about the tech, it's about their impact. So yeah, basically that's the work we do. Thank you.